All right. I think we are live. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. Sketch here from 343. Welcome to our social stream. Special guest joining us today, Dan Chosich. Dan.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
Is this your first time on in this format of this particular stream?
Yeah. I'm usually always behind the camera.
You are. So how's it feel kind of flipping things here?
It feels like I'm in a room talking to 5 people.
Yeah, well, just think about it that way. It's much easier. Just pretend like no one's watching.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're excited to have, I'm excited to have Dan here today, and of course, all of you watching us here on Mixer. We've got the chat up. You probably are familiar with how this works, but throughout our broadcast today, we'll keep an eye on the chat. We'll do our best to try and answer some of your questions along the way. I'm excited that Dan's coming here today because we want to take a very special look back at the Halo Infinite E3 trailer. Before we do that, I know there's a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation out there. I do want to just kind of take a step back and do some of my trademark sketch real talk. We are going to talk about the work that Dan and the team did from very beginning pitch and that came into the trailer that you all saw back in June. But if you're here today kind of looking for new like juicy scoops on Halo Infinite or new feature announcements, I'm sorry to say that's not what we're going to do today. I think Dan has some really cool stuff, though, that if you're just interested in how something like that trailer comes to fruition from the very beginning pitch all the way to what is shown at the E3 auditorium, I think we're going to do something that's not been done before. We're going to look through, and if I'm not mistaken, you actually have the presentation that we're going to look through today is kind of what you used at the very, very beginning when the first concept was pitched to the internal team and to our partners across the Xbox org. Is that more or less true?
Yeah, so when we make anything here, we also have to just get buy-off from the internal team and make them excited about it as well. So this was, and then we have multiple meetings throughout the E3 process where we have to show updates and all of that kind of stuff. And so this is largely one of the very earliest versions of it, but then there's been some new things that were added over time. It's pretty much.
So before we do that, I guess I should take just a small step back, since we should just make sure everybody knows who you are and kind of what you do here, because what people may not know is you and I actually both kind of go way back, and I'm pretty sure we overlapped 10 years back in the day at Bungie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we did. I worked at Bungie in 2005 with Jim McQuillan. I started the Bungie Vidocs.
Yes.
And the Bungie podcast. That was the first thing I ever did, was the Brute Vidoc, because before that, Jim McQuillan, who now still works at Bungie.
Ete Brute?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good Vidoc.
He used to work for this company called Film Oasis, and they made the Halo 2 documentary, and that's what I first interned on when I was in high school. And so that's how I got to know Jim, was actually through a guy named Claude, who made Halo.bungie.org. And I met you at his house.
That's
when
right.
He did
That's right. You were filming footage there, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just playing.
Yeah, but we did do one of his LAN parties. We did do a bunch of capture because it made its way into some of those Vidocs as well. But wow, you were in high school?
Yeah, it was 2003.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a while ago.
Whew.
And then then 2 years later, I worked at Bungie, and then my parents wanted me to go to college. So I had to go to college instead of working at Bungie. So I did that. And then I never thought I was going to work in games again. And I started working in New York City. And 343 got started, and they contacted me. And I've been out here since the end of 2010 working on Halo. A lot of people don't know this, but when 343 took over Halo, Bungie was still making content for Halo Reach. And so if we wanted to promote anything, we would go to Bungie and be like, can you make us this trailer or anything like that? So when I came aboard, I started up the video team instead of Halo, inside of 343. And that was kind of what my job was, to start up their video team, start making content so that we could do it all in-house. And so I did that for 2 years for pretty much all the Vidocs for Halo 4. And then after that, I went and worked with Kiki on her new endeavor, which was mostly doing TV shows, the Halo channel, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's like pretty much living the dream, from the community to sort of a marketing content person, and now you're right in the middle of the development team.
Yep.
And I think nowadays you're on you're the narrative experiences director.
Yep.
That's your title, and you're obviously still responsible with the team for cool things like E3, but you're also now really focused on experiences within the game itself.
Yes.
Cool. We're not talking about that stuff today,
No.
though, so nice. We'll go ahead and divert there. So, and then the last piece of housekeeping, we're not going to be doing, we're not going to actually play Halo today. I know some people like to try to get the skins. Next week, we'll be back for kind of our end of the year social stream. We're looking to have special guest Chris Lee. We're going to play some Halo 5 Holiday Fiesta and kind of have a good time with that. But today, I think Dan's got enough great content here that we think you'd be interested in seeing. So we're not going to play the game today. We're just going to walk through. It looks to be 114 slides on Dan's laptop with a couple videos thrown in. So I think the first thing we should do before we talk about how we made the trailer was kind of just a palate cleanse and a refresher. Let's just watch the trailer as we saw it in June, just in its raw form.
Sure.
Without talking, and then we'll come back and you can do your thing.
All right. Sounds good.
Here we go. Good stuff. Okay, so there you have it, the Halo 3 Infinite E3 trailer. Thanks for watching. We'll see you. No, just kidding. All right, so just one more time. I see a lot of people in chat probably joining us late. Thanks. Good to have you here. We are getting ready to dive into the original kind of behind-the-scenes vision deck that led to the creation of the E3 trailer. We're not going to be revealing new stuff today. There's no gameplay that you're going to see today. Dan is just going to walk us through the thought process and kind of all the nuts and bolts behind the scenes that came together to deliver the trailer that we just saw. So if we're all on the same page, which I hope we are, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you. We have 114 slides to go. Let's do this.
Yeah, so again, we are not showing anything new. The next thing that we will see right after this slide is a breakdown of the trailer. It's basically from start to finish, the trailer in different points through the development of the trailer. And I'm going to go through kind of what we were thinking before anything was even made, kind of how we reevaluated what we wanted to do in our first kind of steps, showing anything related to Infinite. And then the last thing is basically just show from concept art to the trailer asset, and there'll be a bunch of basically shot for shot how it went from concept to the actual final thing. So here we go. Here's a making of the trailer. Cool.
Love that video.
Yeah, so to kind of start at the beginning, at 343, we do a lot of kind of looking back at ourselves and looking at like the way that we've promoted Halo in the past. And one thing that we really looked at were the way that Halo has been marketed. And one thing that we really wanted to change in coming out with Infinite was change the perception around things. And instead of starting from fear, like with Halo 4 and Halo 5, it was, hunting Master Chief. And Halo 4, Chief and a lot of the marketing materials was shown being restrained. And the kind of marketing tagline was an ancient evil awakens. We really wanted to focus for the campaign for Halo Infinite on hope. And that kind of became something that was really important to us to have that come across. As we stated earlier, I'm a longtime Halo fan. I got into this community at a really young age. And the first thing I ever saw was the Macworld trailer, actually. And those images and all of those things from Macworld always stuck in my brain. And we wanted to get back to that. And so we really wanted to have more hope, more mystery, more wonder, more agency, more heroism, more symbolism in the trailer, and just, like I said, more wonder. We really wanted to focus on that feeling of being able to have a living world be at your fingertips, and to get back to what kind of Halo 1 espoused, which was that feeling of kind of cresting over a hill and seeing places for you to go explore. So our next steps became, how do we turn fear to hope? How do we create a sense of rhythm in the trailer so that as you're watching it, you can start to seed things that later get paid off as the trailer progresses throughout the minutes and seconds? How do we connect to our legacy? We're an almost 20-year-old franchise at this point. We can't neglect that. How do we build a sense of mystery in it? And how do we include Master Chief? Because we knew that we would have to. And we wanted to do that in a special way. So what does hope look like? How do we create a shorthand for it? How do you make a feeling visual? How do we create that sense of rhythm? What can we return to and weave within? Connecting to our legacy and mystery, what that meant to us was, how do we invite people to tell their own stories? Because the stories they tell are largely better than any story that we can create, because they're personal and they're their own. And so our North Star became that we wanted to leave the audience believing that this is a place I want to live in, explore, and fight for. And then I asked myself, how did Halo kind of Combat Evolved do that? And I created this video because, again, I say for people that are coming into the chat now, like, one thing that I stated was we largely have to sell these ideas not just to executives, but just to the team, because these trailers and things like that are made by a significant amount of people. And so if you can connect it back to something that was in the past, something familiar, you largely can get buy-off on ideas a lot quicker. And so in Halo 1, I created this video that basically shows some of the ideas that I wanted to espouse in the trailer, which is that when you're walking around in Halo 1, you can look down at the world, and the world goes on, and it feels like the space you're in, even though it's a corridor or it feels somewhat cramped, when you look out onto the space, it feels like it goes on forever. So the space has this sense of expanse. And even though you're kind of in this tight area, it feels much larger than it actually is. And so we wanted to get back to that idea in the trailer, ideally. So we created kind of these principles that we would refer to with the team. The first one was that the world is larger than the frame. The other thing that I'll say here is that any of this art that you're seeing is not actual concept art for Halo Infinite. This is just some renders that I did. So I just don't want that to get twisted. Again, this is not concept art. The second belief was that we wanted to empower the audience to create their own stories, because the stories that the community creates, like I said earlier, is better than anything we can make. Like, we want people to speculate on this stuff. We want people to talk about it. We want people to get excited about it, because we're excited about it. And then the third one is, this was actually one, so Chris Lee had this mandate that he wanted, which was that every week he wanted an email that basically stated, this is the progress on the trailer, these are the things that are coming up, and this is kind of what's happened in the last couple days. And so every time that I would send one of these emails, they were kind of like these nicely formatted emails, and one of them would always, at the end of it, we would always say, make the composition a place you want to get lost in, and make the world a place you want to go. And I think that concept is really important for Halo, because when you go back and you look at the Macworld stuff, or you look at even Silent Cartographer, or just the level Halo in Halo 1, it has that sense of like it's this bright, cheerful place, but you get to shoot things and ride around, and it's kind of fulfilling all of these fantasies that you have about sci-fi and that whole idea of kind of going out amongst the stars. And I think that concept was so strong, and so we wanted to make the trailer this place that you want to repeatedly go and get lost in. And we wanted to fill each frame with that sense of that. And so we created this graph for how we wanted this to flow and how we wanted people to experience the trailer as it was happening. And this is 100% real. This was what we had. It's because it's not going to be believed. Like, that's the reason I'm like stating this. This was the experiential escalation we wanted people to have. We wanted people to be like, I don't know what this is. This is cool. This is beautiful. I think this is Halo. And then this is Halo. I'm excited. And so we kind of mapped this out in like February. This was a while ago, how we wanted it to feel as people were kind of watching it. And then here were some of the results after E3.
What is this?
Curveball. Red Dead? No.
Graphics look crazy on this game. Realistic rocks, my boy.
Recore? Oh, it's Rage.
Oh,
No, too modern.
No,
Splinter Cell.
I don't think it's Rage.
What is this?
Far Cry Primal 2.
I'm so nervous.
Africa 2.
What's this though?
Oh, hang on, they're Halo Marines. They're Halo Marines.
There they are. There we go.
They're... Bruh. What? Oh, Halo! Whoa! Halo 6, my boy! Wow! Halo!
Wait a minute!
Let's go! The Chief is back! Let's go! The Chief is back!
Well, McConaughey really went to the peak,
Dude,
the peak of that
he was into
escalation.
it.
Huh?
Yeah, he
Wow.
was- surprising. So yeah, we had everything was kind of feeding into again that central idea of hope, but we wanted it to have all of these themes, and they're all culminating and building into that idea of hope. So the earliest kind of ideas we had, I remember sitting in a room with Tim Longo and Chris and a few other people, and we had this idea of what if it felt like every shot felt like you were arriving one moment after something has happened. And so you're not seeing the cause, but you're seeing the effect. I just said this, but here's a fancy graphic that says exactly that. And so there's this sense that of life or intelligence that's just out of reach. And the ideas became like you would, as you're arriving to the shot, you're seeing a smoldering fire. Again, eliciting this idea that there's a sense of life that you're not seeing, or bent grass, or vibrating puddles, or rolling shell casings, or abandoned meals, or animals encroaching on human encampments, or the sea reclaiming a warthog. And some of these got into the trailer, some of them didn't. It was more just a kind of conversation starter. And it was something that the team got kind of excited about, because it allows you to do what we had talked about, which was it allows the audience to create their own story. And again, that story that they create is better than anything we can make.
By the way, you're getting seen a couple shout outs in our Mixer chat here. Somebody says, who makes your decks? They look good. And when you got somebody with who has a lifelong history of making videos and creating content and telling stories, Dan can make a damn nice deck.
Yeah, I do make. Yeah, I make the decks. And then the next part was how do we make Hope visual? I talked about this earlier. It's like we needed to have this sense of rhythm in the trailer so that there's something that is in frames or in parts of it that feels like it's the secret that's unfolding as the trailer's going on. And then I asked, so again, how do you make Hope visual? Go and define the word hope. Get a thesaurus. You will see that hope is a bunch of different things. Hope can be a flare, a signal, a vector, a trajectory, lighthouse, guidance, beacon, hope. So what was always there? Past the canyons and rolling hills, what was the lighthouse on the ring? What was that thing in Halo 1? It ended up being these. These were something that were in Halo 1. Jeremy Patnaud, who works on our fiction team, is a good friend of mine. And I would constantly run ideas past him because we're both huge Halo 1 fans. And I'm like, Jeremy, what were these things in Halo 1? What was their fictional relevance and what were they actually doing? And he was like, I don't know that there was any real fiction for them. I think they're called communication towers or communication beacons. But in Halo 1, when you first see them, what they are from a gameplay perspective is it's just something that tells you that past this little canyon that you're in, there's more to go explore. And that idea was so kind of sticky to me. It was something that became really fascinating. And so I went, booted up Halo 1, captured this video, because again, I have to prove to the team that this could work. And be something that's interesting. And if you frame it in the right way, you could see hints of it, and you could see parts of it off a frame, or you could just see its, you could just see the beacon there, kind of firing off screen and lighting up the environment, and that could do that thing that I've been talking about this entire time of hinting at story and hinting at things that can be explained over time, but essentially, when they go back and watch the trailer, they'll see that it was always there in the shots. Is there sound coming through on this? Okay. I didn't know if my voice, I'm hoping it was. And so, again, it gave us these things. It gave us sound, vibration, attention, rhythm. It gave us all of these things that were really helpful in constructing this trailer. And then I'm, again, talking to Jeremy. He was like, yeah, if you do that, there was something really interesting in the Starry Night trailer. We're both huge fans of that trailer. And I'll just play this. I had never known this until Jeremy told me, and it's kind of fascinating.
You ever wonder what's up there? Like what? Maybe someone up there was wondering what it's like here. I guess. Do you think we'll ever meet them? I hope so. Don't you?
So, did you see it? And essentially what this is I never knew this. So at the end of this trailer, a Wraith fires off a plasma mortar, and it's hurtling towards Chief, or it's, I don't know if it ever kind of hits the ground, but it's going towards Chief. And in the beginning here, if you pay attention, you'll see that there's actually this symmetry in the trailer where that same plasma mortar is mirrored in the beginning of the trailer where you're seeing that shooting star by the grass there. And they wanted to kind of have that bookend where there is this, like I said, the symmetry of the shooting star and the mortar fire kind of at the beginning and end. And it became, that was kind of doing what we wanted this trailer to do, where it was essentially like this hint in the beginning that ran throughout the entire trailer and that then culminated at the end. And you see it here, where early on in the trailer, you see that kind of plasma fire go up behind the tree, and it's a hint at where we're going at the end of the trailer.
And by the way, most of the Mixer chat is in the same boat I am in. I've seen that Starry Night trailer dozens and dozens of times. I was at Bungie when it was first being storyboarded and saw the wireframes. until I saw this presentation a few months ago, I myself also had never noticed that shooting star before. So you just blew a lot of people's minds in Mixer chat. I'm with you. Most of us have never seen that and certainly never made that connection that it was all intentionally planned to have this well thought out bookend. So you blew some minds just right there, Dan.
Cool. Yeah, sorry I'm not reacting to the chat. It's hard for me to talk and read that at the same time.
You do your thing. I'll keep an eye on the chat. So far, you're doing good based on what I'm seeing here in the chat window.
Okay, cool. So the next kind of element that we wanted to weave into this trailer was nostalgia, which is largely just unveiling the Halo property slowly over time through iconography, certain languages of form and things like that. So we had mystery, hope, and nostalgia as three pillars of this trailer. Mystery being that thing of, in this example you see here, you see like smoke coming out of a cave, which visually just elicits the idea that something living must be there if smoke is coming out of that cave. Seeing kind of relics of, in that example, you can kind of see it. It's like a rusted out car. Again, something must have been there, but it's kind of broken down. Hope was the beacon. Nostalgia is seeing parts of the UNSC architecture, whatever that ended up being. We didn't specifically know when this exact slide was made, but just essentially iconic shape, language, and characteristics of Halo kind of being unveiled as the trailer progressed. So again, yeah, we had these three themes, and these themes kind of, depending on the shot, this is what this is showing, depending on the shot, we essentially were, some shots might have more mystery, some shots might have more hope, but we had to have all of these in there to kind of craft the story that we wanted to tell. And we really wanted to empower the audience to feel like an explorer, and we wanted to elicit wonder and questions. That was our big goal. We wanted them to feel like an explorer throughout, and then we wanted them to have those questions and have that feeling of hope by the end. And again, to reiterate the same point that I've kind of stated a bunch here, it's the sound and imagery pose questions that we don't answer. It's really important that we don't answer all the questions that we pose, because again, the questions we pose should be personal to the audience and to the fans. Like, we want them to kind of create the story for us and to have that personal experience with Halo. And I think this last line is actually really important, because the trailer really exists to sell the promise of the world that we're creating and sell the promise of the hopeful nature, I think, of the world that we're creating. All right, and what do I have here? Oh, earliest concepts.
I don't think anybody wants to see concepts, right?
These were some of the earliest slides that we have. Again, kind of emerging from the cave, which ended up being in there. Animal herds. Again, some of this went into the slip space nature of the slip space demonstration nature of this. Like, we wanted to show that our engine can do a lot of characters on screen at once, because that is one of the great things about our engine. Hints in the mud. We created these mood boards. Again, we thought about doing interesting framings on things so that we aren't showing everything, and then over time we show more and more. It kind of, that visual language of cropping things so that your mind has to fill in the frame is something that was really important early on. And that's essentially what happens when you see Chief in the trailer. I don't know, the earlier breakdown trailer that we showed at the very beginning of this shows that we played with a lot of how to show Chief. It was, anytime you have Master Chief in a trailer for Halo, it's going to be probably the most contentious shot you have in the trailer, because everybody's going to have an opinion on how you should do it. But what ended up being really important was that we wanted the fans to kind of fill in the rest of him. We wanted to show his helmet, show that he's there, but then have their mind fill in the blanks, because that, again, goes to that idea of them kind of empowering the audience to kind of come up with the story themselves. yeah, we just played a lot with like different ways to show people. This was something that we did, but ended up getting cut at the last minute. So the way that the stage is designed at E3, we had some early understanding of what the stage was going to look like. And they have these right here where you're looking at this, you see Xbox One and Forza on the left-hand side, and then there's some screens on the right-hand side. And so what we ended up doing was making essentially every shot had 3 different cameras pointing at different parts of the world. And then as the shot progressed, it would fill in these, if you were at the show itself, you would essentially see this like panoramic view of the trailer. So it would feel like this kind of really wide version of the trailer. And this actually ended up getting cut pretty much last minute, but it was a lot of extra work that we went in and did.
I would have loved to have seen that. I know sitting in the audience, like the Forza guys, they did light up all those peripheral pieces, and I think it was pretty amazing the way that it did. But I didn't even know this was supposedly maybe going to be something for us until I saw your presentation.
Yeah, and this was just something I did for the lighting artists. Again, just to give you guys like a glimpse into how some of this stuff is made. This is essentially like a Pinterest board for how each shot needs to feel in terms of color and mood and all of that kind of stuff.
Burning Man.
Yeah, Burning Man. Alpine. This is actually the earliest animatic, or if not one of the earliest animatics of the trailer. And you'll see it's a little bit different. We added this stuff. We didn't know you never know when you make an E3 trailer where you're going to end up in terms of the placement, like if you're going to be at the beginning of the show, or if you're going to be at the middle, or if you're going to be at the end. This video, the only reason I'm prefacing this is this video assumes that we were at the end, but it's more just to get people's head into like thinking about it, because they're not necessarily on the same page as us.
I have one more exclusive title to share with you.
I know some things changed, but I got to say, from what was one of the earliest concepts, that ended up being pretty damn close to what was actually shipped.
Yeah. that was done in I think early February. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were already pretty close to the mark.
Yeah.
And no, just so for the jokers in the chat, or you're joining us late, no, that was not actual game footage from the Slipspace engine. We are watching an early concept animatic from the E3 2018 Halo Infinite trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, this is we're almost actually at the end of this, but what I do have here is just per shot showing the concept art, and then in the bottom left corner you'll see the actual shot from the game. So they're pretty similar. Actually, strangely, super similar. All right, and then we have the Rhino.
Yeah. What did you guys? So I just referred to this as the Space Rhino. Was it? What did you guys? What was the
literally
team
called
calling
it that
this?
too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Everyone just called it the Space Rhino.
Yeah, we call it the Space Rhino.
I like the Space Rhino. Let's make it official.
Yeah, Matt Aldridge. I know probably a lot of the community doesn't know who he is, but you probably should, because he's responsible for the Halo 4 Master Chief. He's an amazing modeler from ILM.
I'm positive we'll have Matt on the stream at some point. As
you
soon
guys
as
really
we're
should.
allowed to show some of the amazing stuff he's working on, he's very high on my list to get in here.
Yeah, I'm only stating that because a lot of this is normally what Matt would talk about. But Matt had this reference anatomy. His team then went and had some concept art made for what the Space Rhino would look like. Is this concept art? I think the top is concept art. The bottom is actually the model.
Yeah, it looks like it is a model, but with experimenting with different color
different
palettes
shading. Yeah, exactly. And then this is for scale. I thought this would be kind of cool to show people, so you can see how big Chief is in relation to the animals that are in the trailer. Master Chief. This is cool to just show the fans. And the only thing that I will say is, I spent a lot of time talking to Sparth. Sparth is our art director on Infinite, and this is a bit different than what I'm currently showing you. The final model of Master Chief will be seen eventually, and I'm not saying this like I'm a huge Halo fan. It is by far the coolest, in my personal opinion, Master Chief that we've ever done, or that anybody's really ever done. And this is not the final one. This is just the E3 version from this year. But essentially, Matt made this sheet that shows like where they kind of took influences from to make that helmet. And so it has a little bit of Halo 2 and 3, a little bit of 4, and it's a mixture of those. And again, it'll look a little bit different than what you're seeing here. Matt also put together this video showing like a spin around of it, a turntable of it.
I think Sparth and Matt and team are safe to say they're on the right track, just based on the reactions during E3 and the reactions we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And so that's actually all I have. That was actually 114 slides, like we said.
Blaze through it.
Yeah.
Time flies and you're having fun. I mean, if you got a few more minutes before we have to jump off, I know we haven't had you. I don't want to interrupt your flow, but if we have questions coming through from the chat specifically for Dan about the E3 trailer or his process or anything like that, more than happy to take a stab at that. We're not going to be.
Hello, Jay.
We're not going to be answering
Good
a
to
lot of
see
those
you.
questions that I've seen scrolling through the Mixer feed for the last 45 minutes. So, and I know I saw some questions coming up about Slipspace and things like that. Just a reminder, we're hoping that we will have Chris Lee be a guest on the social stream next week. Chris is the head of the Halo Infinite team here at 343. And as long as that works out as I'm hoping, we'll have him on here, and maybe we can get him to answer a few of these questions that Dan and I are not equipped to answer. So hold those, come back next week, and we'll see if we can get Chris to shed a little bit more light on what he and the team have been doing since June. But what do we got for Dan here? Is that the new 343i logo?
No.
Not really, no.
No.
Dan just makes cool stuff like that for the heck of it.
Yeah, that's actually true. So a lot of this presentation we gave to people at PAX. They came and visited the studio. And actually, I just made that for the people as they entered the room, so that there was something looping as they entered.
All right, the questions are scrolling so fast. One that I saw popped up was just like, how did it feel after the trailer finally aired and it was out there and seeing the reaction? Like, how did it feel for you personally?
That's a good question. I honestly was just proud that we finished it, and that like it got out there. I don't. It was. I mean, I'll be honest. I had never actually done something like that from start to finish. So it was just really. I was more proud of the team for getting it across the finish line, and we did it in a way that I thought was really good. Like, we didn't crunch on it at all. I don't think I ever saw somebody on working a weekend. I was just more proud in the way that we got it finished, and we did not. And I swear this is true. We did not know how it was going to be received at all. So I was just thrilled that people liked it.
I think, I think everyone did like it. Safe to say. I mean, get goosebumps still every time, right? And
Yeah.
it was cool to be there in the moment, in the auditorium, and then later to see your sort of emotional escalation chart. Like, I mean, I literally experienced that in real time, and I think everyone sitting around us did. Like, we could hear it, and you could just feel the energy kind of ramping up,
Yeah.
and then finally the crescendo of, oh my gosh, it's Halo, it's Chief.
Yeah, I mean, that was like one thing that we kept having to come back to, was mapping to that curve of like, is it actually, especially with there's some things in there technically that we had to get right, like depth of field, which it's a technical term, but like if you have an iPhone that has portrait mode, it's the kind of bokeh that blurs out when you take a portrait mode picture. If we didn't have that right, you would essentially see the warthog pretty early on in the trailer as it goes across the desert. And so we had to make sure some of the tech was working, because in early versions, executives will look at it and be like, well, right now I know that that's a warthog. And so you're kind of blowing your emotional curve. And so we had to get that kind of tech right, and we did. And again, like, I think that's the thing that I'm like really proud of, is like a bunch of different teams came together to try to make that thing work, and we all did at the end of the day.
These questions are scrolling so fast. It's really hard for me to keep up and see here. So loving all the engagement and excitement and interest here. Oh, that's a hard question. I see come right there from Keys, caught my eye. If you were to change anything about the trailer, what would you change?
Man, I don't know.
That's tough.
I don't fully know, because I think strangely, it might be some of the earlier music.
Okay.
I think that was contentious too for a lot of people. They were like, obviously, like, we all love the Halo 3 fanfare at the end. But the music before that was something that was really hard to get right, because we couldn't have it feel like Halo, and everything that we were doing, it kind of felt like it was too much like Halo in the beginning. And again, like, we kept trying to map it to, we wanted to have that surprise of people not knowing that it was Halo. But like, even saying that, I don't even know what I would have changed the music to, because I love working with Kazuma.
Yeah, it worked. It totally worked. I mean, it would have been cool if all the extra work you guys did to take advantage of the Microsoft Theater would have actually come to fruition. Like, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out of your control, obviously. I've seen this question come up a couple times. When you say that we want it to be the player's story, like, what do you mean when you were referencing that a few times? Like, you're saying that the story that the players can make up themselves is the most powerful. Like, I think someone was just asking, like, what do you mean when you say that?
I mean that when you play Halo 1, if you actually go back and play that game is incredibly light on story. And the stories that I would create, I should put this in context. I mean, in 2001, I was a sophomore in high school, and I would go home and play that game. And I would just kind of tool around in the Warthog and go over the kind of pastoral hills, and I would basically make my own story as to what I thought was happening, because at the time, I had never read Fall of Reach. I didn't know that there was actually a larger kind of story, and obviously anybody at that time wouldn't have known that Halo would become the thing that it has become. And so the story that I created was personal. It was like my understanding of the world, and I think that is incredibly important to give back to the fans, because I don't know if that doesn't make any sense.
No, I understand what you're saying. I don't know if it's answering if it's addressing specifically I don't even know who asked that question at this point. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, it kind of goes with your whole less is more approach of just not leaving things outside not just telegraphing exactly to the audience. This is what's happening. You should feel this way. This is the thing that we want you to take away. It's leaving enough freedom there for players to use their own imagination and fill those gaps in and kind of personalize it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of storytelling is creating questions, and I think what we wanted to do is create a bunch of questions and then purposefully not answer them, not because we don't know the answers. We need to have the answers to those things, otherwise it doesn't feel like there's any intentionality into what we're creating. But we want the answers to be. We want to kind of piecemeal out our answers to that. But if the community creates a better answer, I mean, I think we want to give them that time to speculate and create those questions and fill in the blanks themselves. Because if we're just basically doing that, I think it kind of cheapens the experience personally.
Looks like Receptor has a question. I see. Was the trailer made in tandem with the Slipspace development, and then how was it to kind of build this trailer with an engine that's also being developed? I mean, I think safe to say Slipspace engine development's been kind of ongoing in different phases it's the culmination of a lot of work over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But it is true that underlying technical systems were coming online that you needed for this trailer, in parallel, right? So
yeah, the kind of crazy. Chris should talk more about this than I should. But the crazy thing about Slipspace is there's a lot of the underlying tech that was being built for Slipspace at the time of this trailer was none of the rendering technology, and so we needed to create obviously a pretty good-looking trailer, but none of that technology at the time was essentially being worked on. And so around the time that this trailer was being made, they actually had to kind of go all hands on deck with certain people and have them focus more on some of the rendering technology and some of the different graphical enhancements that we were talking about. But even then, this is not the final. What you see there is not the final suite of what will be in Halo Infinite. It's. I think Chris would agree, and I don't think it's hurtful for me to say. I mean, our engine will always be working. People will always be working on our engine.
Totally. Yep. All right. Well, I think we're starting to get a little long on time. I see so many questions still coming in. I don't know if we'll have time. I do see people saying, are the slides going to be available for us to see? I don't think we really have plans right now to release this as a standalone piece. Of course, you can watch the video on demand of this stream here on mixer.com/Halo for, I think, about 2 weeks or so before it kind of magically disappears. But right now, we don't really have, I don't think we plan to put this out of context of the stream and of Dan kind of walking through what it all means. Couple quick housekeeping notes for those that are still with us. As a reminder, next week will be our final Halo 343 social stream. So we'll be back at 1:30 on Wednesday here on mixer.com/Halo. Fingers crossed that studio head of Halo Infinite, Chris Lee, will be joining us. And we're looking forward to sitting down with him. We're going to be playing some Halo 5. Tomorrow we have a pretty cool update coming to Halo 5 just in time for the holiday season, so stay tuned for that. And also we rolled out the new season, which just recently kicked off. So some cool stuff going on in Halo 5. We're also preparing for an MCC update as well, which if everything goes according to plan, that too should be landing next Wednesday with a couple cool new features, fixes, and improvements. So just a caveat on that, we're working really hard. The team's pushing to try to get this thing out next Wednesday. That's the goal. But of course, we're going to see how testing and flighting goes this weekend. I'm also told that if you're an MCC insider with access to the insider program thus far, you should be able to get the build this weekend if you're curious to go on there and poke around. So keep an eye out for that. But stay tuned to us next week. By Monday, we'll know for sure if that update's on track, and then we'll have, of course, patch notes and all those full details. And I think that was basically it for my housekeeping notes. So, Dan, I really appreciate you coming here today and sharing this.
Thanks,
I
man.
hope our audience enjoyed this. It's kind of taking a different approach. I don't think we've really gone to this level of content and behind the scenes and kind of how the sausage is made. This is something that I would probably expect to see at like GDC, for example. So if you like this kind of thing, if you enjoyed this stream today, let us know, because there's so much making of story to tell in this building. And I'd like to find ways when the time is right to bring more of the great work the team is doing and help you just understand what goes into something like a trailer, and then, of course, all the different aspects of the game as we slowly start revealing that over time. So it will happen, I promise. I've seen people saying, are you actually going to show us real gameplay ever? Pretty safe to assume between now and release, you will actually see and learn a lot more about Halo Infinite. So stay tuned for that. And a belated shout out to Atomic Jorge and all of our friends down in LATAM. We appreciate it. Thanks for the support. I've seen you come through a few times on chat, and I missed you earlier. So appreciate it. And Dan?
Yeah, thank
final
you guys.
thoughts?
No, my only real thought is that we really are making this in mind with the fans. Like we want this to be something that is extremely special for people that have stayed with us for as long as they have.
Well, and I think to that point, it's also a good reminder, something that Chris has talked about a lot externally and internally, is eventually we will have a flighting program that will literally put the in-development game in the hands of our community and give you a chance to just be right there with us and give us real feedback and help us really refine and hone the game that we all want Infinite to be. So we should have some news on that eventually. I don't know yet what that looks like, but it's very important to the team. It is a pillar for development. It's never been done before for a Halo title. So all the great work, for example, and learnings we got doing the MCC work and in flighting with the community, just imagine that's going to be applied to Infinite as well, and it's going to be a pretty exciting road.
Yep.
Cool.
Well,
So
thank you all.
Thanks,
for tuning
Dan.
in. Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Sketch here. Thank you, Michael and Liz, for helping run
Yeah.
the stream. And we'll be back next Wednesday for our last stream of the year. And until then, we'll see you online. Thanks.